You're listening to Season 14 of the Virtual Tailgate, a media bullcrap production covering college football in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I'm Andrew.
I'm David.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Jared.
Be sure to join the tailgate on Facebook at Virtual
Can't even
Tailgate
get past it.
or email us at virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
Great start, guys.
Remind
Hey.
Geoff why he is not Ron Burgundy. Geoff,
What's up?
it's on to you, my man.
Oh well, you were still talking.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, you.
Wait, again, the intro is short. We can start over.
What? No,
No. Keep going.
Nope,
keep
let-
going.
Let's go over to. We're doing it live. All right. Well, I'm sorry. I was a little bit distracted here. I was, 354, 355. I was busy counting all this money. You jokers didn't make this week with our picks from our virtual tailgate spread and money line pick 'em. And it takes a lot of confidence to be able to put out the money and lay out the money like I did this week. And if you would like to have that kind of confidence, there's always Tecov's work boots, walking taller, feeling taller. You can certainly make some money like mine. You might be able to afford a couple pairs of them. They give you the confidence to go and place those wagers and come out on top just like I did this week. But let's talk about some other players that came out on top this week. Andrew, why don't you kick us off?
All right, well, I'm kicking us off with running back from SMU, Brashad Smith. He had 23 carries for 161 yards and 2 touchdowns. He added another 21 yards and 1 more touchdown receiving through the air. Highlight of that time for him was that he had a 71-yard touchdown run in SMU's impressive victory this week. But he probably wasn't the most impressive running back this week. Jared, I think you've got a contender.
Yeah, I think I do. I got Mr. Omarion Hampton, the running back from North Carolina. He had 32 carries for 172 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. But he didn't stop there. He also caught 3 passes for 93 yards and another touchdown. He accounted for all 5 touchdowns for North Carolina in their 35-11 win against Florida State, which, by the way, this win gives Mac Brown his first win ever over Florida State in his career.
So Mac defeated his alma mater in this one. I'm sure he's got something to say to Omarion.
Get some Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
It was a long walk.
The first double click didn't work.
Enjoy your day.
Now, there it is.
All right, we've nailed it. Okay, I've got a virtual tailgate game ball to give out, and mine is going to Miami wide receiver Xavier Restrepo. And the Hurricanes come from behind win over Duke. He notched 8 catches, 146 yards, and 3 scores. That was en route to surpassing Santana Moss as the Hurricanes' all-time leading receiver. There's honorable mention in this to quarterback Cam Ward, who distributed the ball through 2 more touchdowns, 5 on the day, tied the school record for touchdown passes in a season that he will surely break. This Miami offense is something else, and they're still rolling en route to a possible college football playoff appearance.
Cam Ward's upset with you.
I'm the best player in the country. I'm humbly saying that, and I'm confident saying that.
He says you should have given him the ball instead.
He gave the ball to Xavier too much. What can I say?
Now you got to keep those distributed, right?
It's rare that somebody actually picks a fight with us on the virtual tailgate, but I think Cam Ward might actually be picking one. All right, well, it was definitely a week. It's kind of an odd week that we didn't end up with any quarterbacks. Now Cam Ward obviously put up the numbers respectful of one, but that the 4 of us independently did not hand out a game ball to a quarterback this week. I'm going making it a trifecta of running backs following Andrew and Jared. I'm going to LaQuint Allen, the running back for Syracuse. Now, Syracuse got down pretty early in this game against the Hokies. They were down 14-0 in the first half. Looked like things were not going to go their way. They pulled the game a little bit closer at halftime, but the second half is where LaQuint Allen really broke loose. Ended the game, 21 rushes, 121 yards on the ground. Ended up with 3 TDs, all of those coming in second half, and the game clincher in overtime to help Syracuse complete the comeback to defeat the Hokies 38-31 in overtime.
All right. Well, now we're going to move on to the power rankings, which are brought to you by this special parody service announcement from the Virtual Tailgate. Well, the holiday season is fast approaching us, and although this is a time of joy and fellowship, it can also be a daunting ordeal for many families and head of households. So, if you're the one of many that are feeling overwhelmed and stressed, how should you handle it? Simple. First, ensure someone else is hosting the holiday get together. Then, drop off your family at the shindig. As you all get out of your car, tell your family that you realize you forgot something for the party, but you could get it at the local grocery store. As they walk away from the car, drive that sumbitch like the bandit. Ditch that old ball and chain and any of your supposedly created hellspawn by cashing out all those frequent flyer miles for a one-way ticket to Mexico, where cheap booze and beachfront property is aplenty. Start your life anew with no worries and endless relaxation, and where the only stress you'll ever have again is learning to say, Dos cervezas, por favor. The more you know.
Remember that, guys. The old ball and chain.
Did it come out with a D? Ugh. Well, 6-month hand. Anyway, now we're going to move on to their top 5 and bottom 3. So at number 5, we got the Pitt Panthers dropping 2 spots after their 48-25 loss to the Mustangs down in Dallas. The Panthers are 7-1 though overall and 3-1 in the conference. Number 4, we had the Clemson Tigers dropping 3 spots in the power rankings after their 33-21 loss to Louisville. The Tigers are 6-2, 5-1 in the conference. Number 3, Louisville. After the very surprising upset over the Tigers, became bowl eligible with their 6-1 of the year. The Cardinals are 4-2 in the conference. At number 2, we have the Mustangs, as we mentioned, beat Pitt. They are 8-1 and 5-0 in the conference. And number 1, not really a surprise here. Moving up a spot in the power rankings are the Miami Hurricanes, 9-0, undefeated, 5-0 in the conference, after their 53-31 win over Duke, which required a second half rally as they were down at halftime. And at bottom 3, number 15, we got Wake Forest with their they had a bye. Hey, how about that? You didn't win or lose. That's good.
Gatorade, man. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Coach. Number 16, we got Stanford, the Cardinal, after their recovering from a 59-28 loss to the Wolfpack. Well, John Cena, we got you on the show for once. You got anything to say about this?
Yes.
And the fans applaud. We really do appreciate that. Thank you, fans, for the feedback. And number 17, last but not least, because they are the least, Florida State. My goodness, what the hell is going on there? 35-11 loss to North Carolina. Their ACC conference schedule is complete. They are done. They finished 1-7. They have 4 non-conference scheduled games left to end the season. And well, Dwayne?
3. They have 3 scheduled to end the season. 3.
Oh.
There are 3 weeks to go.
Well, who's counting? I mean, you're Florida State. Who gives a shit? Dwayne, what do you got to say?
Rock says they kept you at the bottom of the barrel because you absolutely suck.
And as Geoff mentioned,
and for Jared, for not keeping track of the weeks or the math or any of that.
Oh, you get your butt beat.
Yeah, thanks, Dabo. You got your butt beat too this week.
Ooh, man. Shots fired there.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Looks like Jared wasn't the only one that didn't do his homework.
And by the way, I do see here as a note, and I think I should mention it, Virginia Tech having just an absolute dumpster fire of a second half, up 21-3 at one point and blowing the game. They get the traditional George Carlin soundbite.
He clambered up, looked in, and nearly fell off in surprise.
Someone defecating.
Stinky doo-doo.
Well, fellas, I don't know if you've looked ahead at this coming week in ACC action, but of all the weeks of football in this conference, well, this is going to be one. But before we get there, I've got a world news update direct from Moscow, where a Russian court has imposed a staggering $20 decillion fine against Google. Apparently, this stems from YouTube and its unwillingness to allow a variety of Russian state-affiliated channels to broadcast on its platform because of objections to the war in Ukraine. It's a way of attempting to punish the Russian government for their misbehavior there. It's a perhaps a laudable thing by Google, but this is a significant fine. This is not usually the sort of thing that we would cover on the virtual tailgate. What does this have to do with ACC football? You might be wondering. Well, that $20 decillion fine, what that comes out to in plain English is a 2 followed by 34 zeros. On that happy note, let's look ahead at some college football this weekend.
Hold on. I really need to know, David, how did you come across this knowledge?
Geoff, I need you to know that I scan the world far and wide for places where the ACC intersects with popular culture, with world geopolitics, with economics, with art and literature,
or that one episode Saved by the Bell. Yeah.
Well, I just need to know. I just need to know for our listeners. Did you come across the decillion because you were searching for other stuff about Moscow, or did you come across Moscow because you were like, well, I need to know what 34 zeros in a number looks like?
Yes.
So important side note, I heard on the podcast Daily Tech News Show this week, that number that they have come up with is more than the Earth has money right now. Just to level set, just so you know.
So, in other words, Russia is about to get really rich.
Or so they think, at the very least.
Well, the big reason I wanted to share that this week and not wait is because we're getting well into the fall semester here. It's entirely possible we're going to be at 35 before we turn around. So I wanted to make sure that we squeeze that one in here as quick as we could. All right, guys, there are some games this week. It's not the most exciting week of action in the ACC, but sometimes weeks like this have some hidden gems and turn out to be really memorable times. We're going to hope for that. Our first action is going to come to us from Chestnut Hill, where the Syracuse Orange are traveling to take on Boston College. This game is almost a pick-em. Syracuse comes in as 1-point favorites on the road, and it looks to me like three of us, Jared, Geoff, and I, are all taking Syracuse on the money line. Like I said, it's basically a pick 'em. We're taking the Orange to win the game. Andrew is the lone voice of dissent, taking BC at home. Andrew, we're going to give you a chance to explain yourself before we tell you why you're wrong.
I mean, this is totally on the random sickos mentality of Syracuse, a team that looks like it's got itself together, a team that has just come off of a good win, rolling up into Boston College and laying an absolute egg. I have no faith in the Boston College Eagles to do anything meaningful in terms of winning this game. I just think it's entirely possible that a Q's team riding high turns right around and decides to put up, 10 points, while Boston College is probably good for 17. It's also entirely possible that Q's puts up 35 again. Who knows? But this is my thought, and this is my reason for picking Boston College on the spread. Also, I knew better than to pick Boston College on the money line because of that 1 point massive difference in the numbers there.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I can't exactly argue with that logic, but I'm sure Jared or Geoff can.
I mean, I totally. Well, I think Andrew's logic is about the only logic that, if there is logic to that makes sense for this pick for this game. Because quite honestly, I'm looking at these two teams, and yeah, Syracuse has had their stumble, not last week, but the week prior with McCord throwing the 5 interceptions. Wasn't quite as sharp this week as he had been. Certainly was better than the week before. But didn't have his best game against the Hokies. But this is a Syracuse team that at least they seem to at least be playing competitive football for the most part. They seem to have some things going on in the right direction. That passing game is certainly formidable, and in Boston College's secondary is is certainly its weak spot on defense. Except for some of the things Andrew brings out, I'm not sure where Boston College exploits anything on this Syracuse team other than just kind of being a crazy matchup. They're playing at home for whatever that's worth for Boston College, but this is a team where it looks like Syracuse pretty much has them, at least statistically in the way they're playing, in almost every facet of the game. So I don't feel great. I mean, I don't feel great about Syracuse. I think that they've come back to earth a little bit the last couple of weeks, not been as sharp, but certainly feel like they're playing better football right now than the Eagles are. So I'm shocked at this near pick 'em in the spread to start out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds strange to say because the season's 2/3 of the way over, but I feel like we still don't exactly know what Boston College is. It's the team that has taken care of business in games where they should have. They also come into this one losers of 3 straight. I feel like Syracuse is the more complete package here, in particular the passing game. If you take a look at what Kyle McCord has done this season, outside of one truly atrocious effort a couple weeks ago against Pitt, he's been pretty good this year. Syracuse ranks in the top 5 nationally in passing yards. I feel like that's going to be the strongest unit on the field on either side. I think they can exploit that, take advantage of it, and get the victory in this one.
Yeah, I think you kind of summed it up. I mean, Syracuse seems to be playing better. At least they played better in the second half against the Hokies than Boston College has recently. I think the health of the quarterback for Boston College, like Castellanos, is going to be big too for this. But I just think right now Syracuse is just the better team with more options on the offensive side. Like Boston College is more of the ground pound game where Syracuse can air it out quite a bit. So I think at that point they just have more options. I think Syracuse finds a way to win against their tough rival.
All right, next up, we are headed to Atlanta. This is where the undefeated Miami Hurricanes come to town to take on Georgia Tech. The U enters this one as 13-point favorites. All of us are taking Miami. The 3 of you are giving the points. I'm taking the money line because I don't know. I feel like I've seen Miami play, but Miami's like a cat that has caught a mouse and they just kind of play with it. They kind of toy with their opponents, and it's not hard for me to imagine this game being a little closer than that 13-point spread. But the point being that we're all taking the Hurricanes to win this one. That would improve them to 10-0 on the season. I think we're at the point where we can seriously ask the question, is the U back? And where we can begin to seriously ask the question of, is this team a legitimate national championship contender? Tell me where you see Miami at today relative to where they were a few weeks ago. And is there any way for Georgia Tech to pull the upset here?
Well, I would say the one bet to place if you're a betting person would have been the one I wish I put for the Duke game. Georgia Tech wins the first half, as in they'll be in the lead at halftime, but Miami will still win the football game. It seems like at this point, Mario Cristobal has the team to ability to understand how to overcome deficits. He's done it numerous times at this point, whether they were legit or not. You can make the comments about the command center for the ACC, all that crap. It's fine. I agree. Trust me, I was on the wrong end of it as a fan. But Miami does have talent, and they have more talent, I think, right now than any team in the ACC. So do I see them making the playoffs? Probably. I think SMU really is going to give them a run for their money. And do I see them making noise in the playoffs? No. I think once they face anyone that's within the top 8, I just don't see them hanging. I really do think this team does have some flaws that are going to be easily exploited by the top tier teams in the college football, out there in college football.
David, you asked the I don't know if it's the right or the wrong question, but like you said, is there any way Georgia Tech pulls the upset? Absolutely, man. This is Miami going on the road in November. We've seen what Miami has done at various different times in years past. As they get towards the end of their season, we've seen Georgia Tech be a scrappy team so far this year in more ways than one. There are many ways that this can go wrong. It just seems like the smart money would be on the Miami spread. Another question that you asked is the U back? No, the U's not back until they win a national championship, because that's what they need to believe in order to think that they're back. And like Jared said, I don't know that I think any ACC team can hang with any Big Ten or SEC team. If anyone can, it's Miami. At least the guys making the rankings right now seem to think that that's a likely possibility, or else they just don't want to get flack for having any of the teams that get buys not be in the top four. But I think there's a chance that they get matched up against in that top 12 against like a Power 5 team, or non-Power 5 team or something like that lets them squeak through a round. But I just don't know how I feel about any ACC teams until I actually see it in the playoffs.
Andrew, can I push you a little bit on part of what you said about Georgia Tech? You described them as a team that we've seen be scrappy. I just wonder, it seemed that way early in the season when they pulled off what at the time was a real big upset over Florida State in that game in Ireland. I wonder if since then we've actually seen them be scrappy at all. They've won some football games, but here are the teams that the Yellow Jackets have defeated this year: Florida State, Georgia State, VMI, Duke, and North Carolina. Their offense is completely stalled out over the course of the past month. They were annihilated by Notre Dame. They were completely flummoxed against Virginia Tech, and they're going up against a Miami team that has the number one offense in the country, both by points scored and by yards put up. I think I'm talking myself into taking Miami and giving the points here. I think the Hurricanes are a lot better than Georgia Tech.
So I think you both can be right in your assessment of this game, because I basically had to come down to which I felt more confident in, whether, because I think they both play into both Miami's strength and its weakness that you both kind of hit on, because in the last, if you just look at their last 5 games for Miami, we're talking a 4-point win against Virginia Tech where they had to come from behind, 39-38 win over Cal that was ugly, 52-45 win over Louisville. Okay, that one was back and forth. FSU game that was good, and a 53-31 blowout of Duke that was not a blowout, that they were down by 4 points halfway through the third quarter. So I think there's every thought to think that if Miami doesn't come to play for enough of the game, that it turns in to a game similar to the Cal, similar to the Virginia Tech game, where they squeak out a win, but they don't cover the spread. Or if it gets really bad, that they end up losing the thing because they just let Georgia Tech hang around. That being said, I can't go off of that type of what if stuff, because what I see every week is that Miami is by far the superior team and should win this game 10 times out of 10 if they play their best football. So that's why I'm taking Miami minus the 11 or whatever it is, the minus 13 that it is right now. Because I think they have the ability, they have the tools, they have the player, the best player in the world, right, in Cam Ward, to beat Georgia Tech by those. And like you said, David, Georgia Tech has kind of stalled out a little bit the last month of the season after what was a promising start to the season. But to go to your second question here, which I think is interesting, because Miami's sitting here ranked in the top 4 right now in some of the polling, is but I want to believe that top ranked offense is real, and I certainly think there's some reality to it. Defense still gives me pause. They're definitely giving up a lot of points to go with that offense. How much of that is just laziness versus weaknesses? But as far as being able to make noise in the playoffs, I would love to say, Miami is this year's version of Florida State from a few years ago, or Clemson, for about a decade while Dabo Swinney, when he had Clemson at the heights. But I'm going to read you guys this list here, and let me know when I get to a team that any of you think any of these other teams that are going to be in the playoffs wouldn't just chew up and spit out. So we've got Virginia Tech, Florida A&M, Ball State, South Florida, Cal, Louisville, Florida State, and Duke. I mean, Any takers there? I mean, Miami, you can only win the games that are in front of you. All the respect in the world to it, but eventually you're going to play one of these teams from the SEC, the Big Ten, that is playing a gauntlet every single week. Guys, do you hear any team in there that any of those other 12 teams wouldn't just chew up and spit out?
Yeah, it does. It feels a little bit like Florida State a year ago, where you can run the table in a league like the ACC. And I would argue that the ACC is not a bad league. It's just kind of heavy in the middle and light at the top, and so Miami, they are sitting at fourth in this week's AP poll. But listen to the teams who are behind them. And tell me how far you have to go down before you get a team that you actually would feel confident taking Miami over them. Anybody taking Miami over Texas?
No.
Penn State?
No.
Penn State's offense is pretty bad. Maybe.
Penn State, yeah. That will make it action. Penn State's not.
That'd be an interesting one.
It'd be an interesting game. Tennessee, Indiana, BYU.
Indiana, definitely. Indiana has not been the team that has received a vote in the top 25 this year.
Are you giving them the Miami treatment, Jared?
He really is. Look at this. Wow.
Yeah, Indiana's having a fantastic season. They haven't beaten anybody. Look at their schedule.
Look up their coach, man. Google him. All he does is win.
That's great. He's going to lose when he plays a real competitor.
Anyway, I think Miami in the top 4 is probably a little bit of a stretch. The thing is, they just keep winning. So at some point, you just by attrition, you make your way up there. We'll learn a lot about this Miami team come ACC championship game. Presumably, if things keep unfolding the way they are, that'd be a matchup against SMU. An opportunity to really show something. And hey, if they keep winning, they're certainly going to be in a 12-team playoff.
I mean, I think at some point what we'd be talking about is if SMU and Miami both keep winning and putting the seasons together, is there room in the 12-team playoff for both teams? That's obviously a lot of stuff to that has to go right between now and then. But with the 12-team playoff, if both those teams, Miami's undefeated going in, SMU keeps winning, we'll be having discussions. Is there a spot for both of them?
You have to hope so, right? I mean, SMU, their only loss on the season is to a BYU team that may be in the playoffs themselves,
Yeah.
If we have 2 teams run the table in regular season play in the ACC and one of them gets left out, well, it'll just confirm what I think maybe we already suspect or know about the landscape of college football. But it really would be a frustrating course of events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I think this is going to bring us to what I guess is serving as our de facto ACC game of the week. This is the Clemson Tigers traveling to Lane Stadium to take on Virginia Tech this weekend. These are 2 teams that really are on the ropes. Both of them have stumbled multiple times this year. Both of them took what really were kind of embarrassing losses in different ways a week ago. And looking to right the ship in this one. Clemson comes in as 5.5-point favorites. Once again, 3 of us are taking Clemson and giving the points, and Andrew is wrong again. Andrew, what do you like about the Hokies here?
Not much of anything except that, again, I'm picking home teams for right now on most of these. So, I really do think both teams were upset. Dabo is much more likely to get his team ready to play. But there's every chance to me, legitimately in a late season game at Lane Stadium, that Virginia Tech only loses by 3 or something to that effect. And so that's kind of where I'm hedging this in right now, giving the Hokies a little bit of chance to win, because no matter the more doom and gloom Jared tells me about Virginia Tech, the more I believe that they're just going to whip themselves into fighting shape in order to hand UVA a 20+ point loss here in a couple of weeks. So they got to get better.
Happening.
Yeah, they got to get better somehow at some point in order to do that. So that's pretty much where this comes from.
Well, Andrew, I'm thinking back to that heartbreaking loss that Virginia Tech took to Miami earlier in the season. And I think all of us thought, man, this is a moment when this team really could fold. That it was their third heartbreaker on the year. Like, you could really imagine it. And they really came out and kicked some tail for a few weeks after that. And so I do think that Brent Pry has demonstrated an ability to kind of rebound from tough losses. And this would be another chance to do that if they can pull it together.
That's the thing. They have to pull it together. If they want a shot. They have to play 4 quarters. They haven't done that all year. They have not played a complete game, which, of course, as is tradition, as UVA will say, it will happen against the Cavaliers at the end of the season. With that being said, I really don't care. They need to just play a consistent game. And unfortunately, it's too late now for them to have any ACC title hopes. They were slimmed in to begin with. They're gone now. So you're playing for pride at this point to just get to a bowl game and maybe, a more better fit bowl game, which at this point is going to turn into a exhibition because half the players are going to opt out anyway. So you're playing for pride at this point. Clemson, I think, can get motivated a little more easier than what Brent can do down there in the Blacksburg. I think the Tigers take care of this game pretty easily, honestly. And, it's so funny how this works. Back in the day, this would have been a must-see game. And now in the ACC, you kind of look at it and go, that's really a shame at the end of the day.
Hey, it's 3:30 on ESPN. It's in a prime spot.
Well, they got to show something, am I right? They're going to show gymnastics.
Man, Jared is dark.
Ouch.
Yeah. Oof.
Could have done without that dig that he had at the end there. So I think that a lot of the way I feel about this game, or at least a decent amount, is predicated sort of what you said, David, is both these teams are coming off losses last week. Both of these teams are coming off games in which they, in their mind, should not have lost. And so really you've got two teams that should be coming out hungry to right the ship. And it's hard for me to I've just seen, as you said, we've seen more out of Dabo. He's got more experience in that area of just getting his team ready to play than Brent Pry does. So I have to give the, if you're talking about who do you give the advantage to in different facets of the game, Dabo coming off of a loss like that, I certainly have to give him the edge as far as making sure his team is not going to make that mistake twice, and not underestimate an opponent twice like they did against Louisville this last weekend. So I think that gives them an edge coming in. This is what I can see in this game. This is the top two rushing offenses in the ACC coming in this game. It's it could really turn into a somewhat of a lower scoring game. The defenses on the ground are pretty good for both these teams, and both these teams run a lot of their offense through the rushing game. So it could turn out into a ball control game, low possession, long drives that keeps the Hokies in it and possibly keeps them close. But in reality, really, I feel like this is a game where both teams are going to come out angry. They're going to be getting some, at least I know from Dabo, they're going to be getting some colorful pep talks before they come out of that tunnel at Lane Stadium and be ready to play. So I think that really the loss last week is what sold me that Clemson is going to be the team that's going to come out here and really take it to the Hokies to make a statement after that tough loss they had against Louisville.
Yeah, that's what I see too. I actually think that these teams are not as far apart as they might have been in past seasons, but I think there's the circumstances of this. I don't know. Are the key playmakers for Virginia Tech, are they going to be back next week, Jared?
Good question. They were. Everyone was surprised when they say Kyron Drones was out. I mean, that was not expected, and that's when I was texting you all first thing Saturday morning. It's just like, guys, there is some late breaking development that he may not play, and then he did not play. And at the end of the day, although the backup quarterback did a fine job, would Drones have made a difference in the game against Syracuse? And we just don't know. And it is what it is. And I would assume if it was a foot injury that was close to being played this past week, I would assume Drones would be ready to go against Clemson. But your guess is as good as mine.
Well, it's also, they do have a line for it. And normally if it's a key player like that, because college is so much quieter on the status of injuries, you would think if it was something serious in question for a player like Drones, they might not have a line for it, but I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Well, and you also would think if they're expecting him not to play, that line would move up more than 5 in the hook, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But I at the end of the day, I think Clemson wins this game. I think they win it comfortably. Again, I kind of agree with what I heard Jared saying, which is maybe in this one, this is a close game for a while. Maybe the Hokies are out ahead, but can they finish it against a really solid Clemson team? I just don't see it happening. And I think with that, Andrew, we're ready for some quick fire bets.
Oh, absolutely. And you're going to pick on me even for my quick fire bet, but hey, this late in the season, whatever, man. I found a spread on. I was actually telling you guys about how it was hard to track down some early spreads this week for all the games. I was about to give you guys for a quick fire bet. No matter what the spread was, I was going to say Virginia was going to beat it against Pitt, but we've got it at
Virginia plus anything.
Yeah, I was actually expecting the opening spread to be a lot more than 5 in the hook on that Pitt game. I guess people are kind of down on Pitt after their loss, but nonetheless, I'm still taking them to cover that spread. I don't know if I actually believe it's terribly likely, but what the heck, we'll go for broke there. Jared?
Well, the one thing I did see was that for whatever reason, the Duke North Carolina State game, North Carolina State's favored by at least 3 in the hook, depending on where you look, if not more. With that being said, take that Duke side and take the Duke money line and collect your winnings, folks. And thank me later.
Yeah, this is my pick is I'm actually going opposite Andrew on this one. I'm taking Pitt with the -5.5. That rush defense, well, really the entire defense for the Cavaliers is a mess. But that rush defense specifically, I think that Pitt's running game has a field day.
And I'm going to take Notre Dame -24 over Florida State. That's a sentence I never thought I'd be uttering at the beginning of the season, but I think this Florida State team has just about given up. They were hapless and hopeless on Saturday in that loss to North Carolina. And this Florida State offense is historically bad going up against a Notre Dame team that can score some points. And I think in the end, this is a blowout.
All right. Well, that is it for the Virtual Tailgate. You can send your questions or comments to virtualtailgate@mediabullcrap.com.
And always remember these 3 rules. Never get less than 12 hours sleep.
Never play cards with a guy who has the same first name as a city.
And never get involved with a woman with a tattoo of a dagger on her body.
Stick to that. And maybe you too can become a decillionaire.
That's ball game.
Andrew stole my line.
34 zeros, Jared.